Hi. I'm the mother of two beautiful interracial children, aged 3 and 7. A couple months ago, I was attending an event I'd really been looking forward to. It was a conference on coaching executives. I was sitting at a table with my peers. I was eating up every word, and I was loving it. My phone's always to my side, starts ringing. I look down, and as a parent, it's the call you don't want to see on your phone. It's my daughter's preschool. I excuse myself, because it's never good news, right? So I excuse myself, I walk outside, and I answer the phone, and they're like, well, Georgia has lice. I was like, shoot. Okay, so I pull myself together, text my husband. He's on the way to pick her up. I'm sitting there trying to think about how this is going to work, because it's dreaded. Like, we've never had that before, and I know it's horrible. Processing. My phone rings again. It's my son's school. Guess what? Dash has lice. Text the husband, figure out the day, and at that moment I was very glad I worked for a very flexible company where I could reschedule the rest of my meetings and spend the day at home doing laundry while answering emails. At that point, I realized that not every company is so flexible, and being a parent isn't always an ideal place to be at a tech company. I've decided to normalize parenthood. I don't want to hide it, so I talk about my kids maybe a little too much. I let my team know where I'm doing. If I'm taking the morning off to go to a field trip or do a morning read, I want them to know about it. I coach soccer. I talk about it. I also do my job. I log off from 5 to 9 every night. I'm constantly asking people to reschedule meetings because I'm not going to stay till 6:30 most nights. And I want to be there when my kids go to bed. Another way that I've tried to normalize parenthood in tech is by bringing my son to work with me. Not every day, but a couple times a year when there's one of those random holidays, or in the summer when he's sick of summer camp, I'll bring him in with me. And it's kind of exhilarating. He knows how to talk to adults. He's 7 years old. He knows where the snacks are. He knows how to play ping pong. He knows what I do. He actually knows what I do. I don't think a lot of kids whose parents work in tech know what they do, but he sat through meetings with me. He knows my coworkers, and it's pretty cool. So I talk about it. I normalize it. And I'm thankful that I can try and show most of my coworkers who don't have children what my life is like, and show everyone what that dual role is like. I'm Laney, and I work at Blend.
I am the proud daddy of 2 brilliant and hilarious young ladies, and my story takes a little bit of a long view because it begins when I had a little tiny consultancy with one partner here in San Francisco called Infobon, and we were doing internet services back in the days when a client pitch started by explaining to people what the internet was and why they should care. So that'll kind of put this in time for you. And it was into that primitive world that my first daughter was born. And my wife and I were really excited to have our girl. And we also both worked hard at jobs that we really loved. And thought hard about how we could make that work. We didn't want her to be with a nanny all the time. So what we came up with was the then kind of innovative idea that we would each work 4 days a week and have a weekday with our daughter, and then she'd be with a nanny only 3 days out of the week. So my wife went to her boss at her magazine and said what she wanted to do, and her boss said, well, all right, if you want to work 80% of the time, you can do that for 80% of the money. And then I went to my boss, and my boss was me. And my boss said, you just have to get everything done. So that's what I did. I took off Wednesdays, and I spent them with my daughter, and then I made up for it Wednesday night, and sometimes Thursday night and Friday night, because especially when you're running a little tiny show, that's what you have to do. But that flexibility, when you're an engineer, is mostly built into the job. You can do things when it makes sense, and the important thing is getting everything done on time. So I juggled things around and made that work. And sometimes I would talk to a client, and they would say, why don't you come in on Wednesday, we'll review the project. And I would say, I can't come in on Wednesday, I'm with my daughter that day. And sometimes people thought that was really cool, and sometimes they didn't. And then I realized I could just say, oh, Wednesday's no good, how about I'll come in Thursday morning? And I just kind of talked my way around it sometimes. And that's kind of set the pattern for me since then, a little bit different from Laney. I don't feel like I hide anything, but I take advantage of the flexibility that most tech jobs offer, or I think it's most. I've really made a point of only working in places that support that kind of flexibility. Sometimes I'm clear about what I'm doing, and sometimes not, because the reality is a lot of my coworkers have been great about this, and to tell you the truth, a lot of them just don't understand my lifestyle choices. So I've kept this balance. When I've had a daughter doing a play at school, I'll shift away from the morning, or I can help after school and be an extra coach for soccer practice or whatever else like that. And that's the balance I've had. Fast forward 22 years, the little girl I used to spend my Wednesdays with is presently a college senior and has set her sights on a very hard-to-get job with a grueling interview process, and she wants practice. And will I help her? And so I help her in evenings and weekends, and I also, during a fair chunk of October and November, was sometimes not sitting down to our tasty lunches at work with my coworkers, but grabbing a paper plate and going down to some quiet conference room and turning on FaceTime and practice interviewing with my daughter. And it occurred to me when I was putting the story together for today that I'm not sure I ever mentioned that at work. It's not a secret. It just doesn't always come up. And that's been fine. That's the balance that's worked for me, and I'm just so happy to have had this flexibility that's let me be there for my kids, sometimes physically and sometimes virtually over all this time. I'm Andy. I'm an engineer at Blend, and footnote, my daughter got the job.
All right. Yep. I'm Ciara. I own diversity, inclusion, and belonging at Blend. These are literally my coworkers. I work with these two people, which means a couple things. Number one, I'm kind of obsessively thinking about lice right now. Like, I feel the funny thing is I knew you were going to tell that story, forever. And like the fact that you were like the dread, I was just like, oh my God, lice is so real. And I'm also realizing that Andy, I know lice is so real. What a revelation. Also realizing Andy, can you talk? I feel like my dad's going to be watching this, so I'm really sorry, Dad, but he definitely did not practice interview with me during delicious lunches. So I feel like maybe you could have a talk with him. Maybe it doesn't matter. I feel like I got the job already. Okay? Yeah. I got the job too. I'm gonna spend the I'm gonna spend the next 3 minutes sharing with you, I think, actionable things that you can take away to bring back to your organization is about how to be a really inclusive workplace for parents. Now, quick show of hands, because as it turns out, I can see you. Joke's on you for people who walked out right at the beginning. Ha ha ha. Raise your hand if you are thinking about ageism at work. Ageism. The discrimination of people based on age. Raise your hand if you're just thinking about how to better promote parents and being a parent at work. Fantastic. I got 2 for you. I hope you're ready, and I'll give them to you for free, so to speak. Number one, both of these stories, and I'm really holding on to them, talked really intensely about flexible PTO. And I feel like a lot of organizations have flexible PTO. It's basically unlimited vacation. Leave whenever you want. That's amazing, as long as you mean it. If leave whenever you want, or leave to take the time that you need, means that Laney can make sure that she makes it to every single one of Dash's practices, to make sure that Andy's able to be on the East Coast to watch his daughter graduate. Mean it. Here's another big trick, and this might be a shock to you all. Flexible PTO and giving people the opportunity to go and be their best selves outside of work, really their selves are most important, means that you don't send them an email and you don't ping them on Slack. And I don't care how urgent it is, we want to make sure that they have the ability to live their lives outside of work. I think it's just crucial. So if I put an out of office on my calendar, my coworkers now know, chances are I'm not going to respond. Even though I know it's important, taking care of myself is most important. For these folks, taking care of their families is most important. These are 2 stories of dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of parents who work in tech who frankly have to compartmentalize what it means to be a parent at work and what it means to be a tech employee in your tech job with your fancy snacks. And we have delicious snacks. We're hiring, and we have good snacks. In case you're wondering how that goes, we have good snacks. Our head of recruiting is back there. She's nodding with me. She's like, yes. Snacks are delicious, also fantastic benefits. Long story short, the second thing and the most important thing, inclusive events. Happy hour does not fit everybody. Happy hour also isn't super conducive with pickups. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, you have no idea how many times I'm like, oh, hey, you're going to say, oh, you're not going to, because you have to pick up your, oh, yeah, see ya. See you later. And it doesn't mean that I don't want you to be there. It just means for whatever reason, I believe it's convenient to host a happy hour at 4:30. When I don't think there's anything wrong with doing a meetup at 9. Or I don't think there's anything wrong with doing something at lunchtime. Because it turns out Laney and Andy's opinions are just as valuable as mine. They just have a whole extra life that they live outside of the office that I want to make sure I'm respectful of. So flexible events. Don't rely on happy hours. Do a breakfast. Hell, do a lunch. Sometimes people want to get out of the office. Host a lunch. That's absolutely fantastic. A point Laney made. allow the ability for your kids to come and check out what you do. You don't have to have a ping pong table for them to be amused by the fact that you have unlimited snacks. That's like my favorite thing with my nieces. I'm like, oh, do you want to come check it out? Oh, yeah, let's check it out. They're like, wait, these snacks, you get to eat these snacks? Yes, I get to eat these snacks whenever I want. Bring them to work, integrate them into what you're doing. But more than that, I think you're signaling out to the parents who are at your companies that you value them first, not just the people that you hired into these roles, not just the people who you're holding to these OKRs, but you're valuing them as the individuals, as the parents that they are, and that's the most important. We want to continue this conversation. We always will. You can reach out to me directly. You can reach out to Laney and Andy about both Slice and interviewing, respectively. Laney has a lot more opinions than just Slice.
Talk about Lice.
Tons of opinions than just Slice. A huge thank you to The Atlantic for having us, and looking forward to connecting with you all later. Thank you.